president that is there today, how many years has he stayed? 2 years. And you could see where we are. Look at the turn of things in 2 years. That means that you can change things in 2 years. If I was there in 2 years, Charles, then you would have seen considerable change. In critical areas, I would have tackled corruption head on. I would have reduced cost of governance. And you will see it. People will feel it. And those monies invested in critical areas. Our primary health care today, I told you, 70% are not functional. And we spent over 35 billion in conference center. Which conference? Who is coming for the conference? You need to invest your money properly. Charles, you have been seeing more borrowed money invested in critical area. There's nothing wrong in devaluation. I would have done something. I would have allowed the naira to float. But I would have done it in an organized manner. There will be productivity. The idea of devaluing your currency, allowing it to float, to be cheaper, is that you have productivity so you can export, so people can come and buy. But when you don't have productivity and you devalue your currency, it's double whammy.
All right, Barrister. Now, you for those of you who just watched this clip, you could feel the passion, the frustration, the anger in Peter Obi. Peter Obi, I've watched so many of his interviews. He's always calm, usually calm and collected. He picks his word one at a time. But on this, I noticed his frustration. I noticed his anger and passion to do the right thing, to actually govern the right way. But my point is, first, everything he said, honestly, while you and I agree that Peter Obi could have effected a significant change, and that change, we weren't expecting him to be the change to be dramatic. We weren't expecting a kind of miracle and an entire system overhaul. We weren't expecting that. We both agreed that he could have laid a good foundation for future leaders to build on, a sort of. But honestly, I don't know what you think about everything he said, because he seemed to be seeing Nigeria, viewing Nigeria as he viewed Anambra State. Anambra State is just a state, and it's just one of the smallest states. So he actually performed magic there. He did wonders there. He transformed the entire governing administrative process. There's no doubt about that, and that is why we respect him for that. But the reality is, Nigeria is 1,000,000 times more complex. Yeah, Anambra State is complex. Let me be frank with you. Though it's one tribe, but honestly, Anambra State is one of the most difficult states to rule. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to complexity, Nigeria is 1,000,000 times more complex than Anambra State. So dealing with corrupt politicians in Anambra State is different from dealing with corrupt politicians at the federal level. So what the hell is Peter Obi talking about? Do you believe that he could have been able to do everything he said? Because trust me, Obasanjo tried it. I don't know if you still remember during Obasanjo regime. Obasanjo tried it. What happened? He actually tried to fight corruption. He started with the NEPA, the electric authority, and you couldn't, sort of. Then he went on started with politicians, went rampage in left, right, and center. Used BPE, Bureau for Public Enterprise. He did all that. But what happened? Obasanjo was the first and the only president up to date we're talking about that was almost, he was just an inch to impeachment. That was what actually made Galina Abba. Remember, Galina Abba then was the speaker. That was what made him popular then. He was almost impeached because he actually wanted to fight this corruption. Remember, Obasanjo was the one who established his EFCC, and okay, ICPC has been there, but he gave it.
He established the two agencies.
Oh, okay, ICPC, right? Okay, yeah, the two agencies. Okay, I think I forgot. So, what is Peter? You think Peter Obi has more courage than Obasanjo? You think Peter Obi has more temerity, more guts than Obasanjo? If you think Peter Obi can garner support from the north as Obasanjo did? Obasanjo is the way you talk of pan-Nigerian. He is the epitome of that personality called pan-Nigerian. That is just yet he failed. He was almost impeached. You think Peter Obi, barrister, take it from here. You think Peter Obi could have been able to do everything he said? And besides, okay, deal with that first. Then I'll come back with the next question.
Yeah, I will deal with it in two aspects. One, from the angle of fighting corruption, and two, from the issue of devaluation of the currency. By and large, as I have said repeatedly, as between the front runners in the politics today, as between Peter Obi, Atiku Abubakar, and Bola Tinubu, there is no question, and there should be no debate, that by any stretch of imagination, Peter Obi would have done far better. How far better is relative. It is arguable, it's debatable, because of the constraints that we have in the system in Nigeria that I've talked about repeatedly. But one thing that I have said repeatedly, and why I have not supported, why I did not support Buhari when he started mouthing about corruption, fighting corruption, because I know one or two things, and I have said it again and again and again. Number one, rather than the fire brigade approach that we are used to, and in contrast, the European nations, the Oibo people, let's put it that way, when they are confronted with a system, they don't rush. They take time to study that thing very well. Only then will they be able to profile solutions. People who come up and start shouting, I'll fight corruption, most of them, I know that they don't have the pedigree. They don't have the knowledge to fight that corruption. And that is one of the things I condemned Buhari when he was talking about fighting corruption. I did not see any competence in him, any knowledge of the fight he was going to engage in. He didn't have an idea of it. Now, the reason why I say in fighting corruption, Peter Obi would have been better is because of his personal discipline. Now, when people back then talk about the aesthetic life that Buhari was living, it was a sham to me. But in contrast, we have seen Peter Obi as governor, and we see his low lifestyle. We see his financial discipline. To that extent, he would have fought corruption better than anybody, including Obasanjo himself. I will come to that later. I have said repeatedly that if you want to successfully fight corruption in Nigeria, there are two things. Number one, we study the problem in all its ramifications and make solutions which will guide the focus on fighting corruption. Number two, the leader, that is the president, his wife, his children, his relations, must stand on a high moral pedestal. It's not just the president, all his relatives, including his children, his wife, and relations. Because we saw what happened with Abacha's children. We saw what is happening with other people's children. These people who are leaders with their relations must sit on that high moral pedestal. If they don't have it, forget it. Because it's only when you have and sit high above other people morally that you can discipline your associates, you can discipline your family members, you can discipline your friends. If you don't have that capability, you cannot discipline anybody. That is why it is difficult for a corrupt person to fight corruption. It's difficult for a person whose children, whose associates are corrupt to fight corruption. Because look, during Buhari's time, for instance, several of his top close associates were accused of corruption. And what did he do? How was his response to it? Now, we already have statutory agencies to fight corruption, ICPC and EFCC. Now, a minister is accused of corruption. Your chief of staff is accused of corruption. What do? If you are transparent, send him to those statutory agencies, give them the full authority to investigate. But what did Buhari do? Every time his close associate was accused of corruption, he will set up a committee in the same presidency, the same associates of that person to give him a report. Now, that is nonsense. Of course, nobody was returned as indicted throughout. So you see the problem that came with that. Now, Peter Obi, personal discipline, financial discipline, is completely opposed to that kind of running things that way. He was alert at knowing how the money was going to be spent, what it was spent for, and if it was a good bargain. Maybe that is a normal Igbo trader mentality, good and fine, because nobody is supposed to, if in your personal finances, you cannot just spend your money anyhow. If you are in positions of leadership, trust, you should not also spend the country's money anyhow. Any kobo that goes out must be justified.
All right.
It must be cost-benefit analysis. So I believe that he could have fought corruption better. But how better depends again on the system of checks and balances, the National Assembly, the judiciary, and
Barrister,
the politics that we have.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Honestly, I think I beg to disagree with you on this. Yes, there's no doubt about everything you said about. We all know that's why we supported Peter Obi. There's no doubt about that. His antecedents, his record in Anambra State as a governor, that is obviously that we've talked about. I've enumerated on several. I did some monologues then, enumerating reasons, multiple reasons why I support then prior to 2003 election, Anambra election, how disciplined it was for a sitting governor not to have after retiring as a governor, neither him nor any member of his family not to have one land allocated to him or any of his cronies or member of his family. That to me is unprecedented. This is just one of so many virtues he exuded as a governor. So there's no doubt about that. That man is incorruptible. He is the only governor since the dispensation of democracy in Nigeria, all successive governors, state governors have had one dealing or the other, either directly or by proxy, with the EFCC, either being investigated or being named for investigation, being listed for investigation, or being called in for interrogation, or being detained for corrupt. One way or the other, no governor has been immune from this, except Peter Obi. So he has an impeccable pedigree when it comes to incorruptibility. There's no doubt about that. But my point is, dealing with Nigeria, like I said, Obasanjo, we saw Obasanjo, that we know, both of us agree how strong Obasanjo is, how strong-willed. He couldn't do that. He tried to do it. He's not as disciplined when it comes to finances as Peter Obi. There's no doubt about that. Peter Obi, Obasanjo has never done, has never been a businessman as such, apart from owning a farm. He's been a farmer, there's no doubt about that. Peter Obi has run so many businesses, still running businesses. So he is an experienced Igbo businessman. There's no doubt about it. So the way he would deal with money, will handle money, will obviously be different. I think it has to do with, but look at Donald Trump too, a businessman. Naturally, businessmen know how to handle money better than politicians. There's no doubt about that. So, but honestly, in the Nigerian context, on national level, honestly, Peter Obi could have, the National Assembly for one, you just mentioned institutions, the other two arms of government, he could have, look, these guys could have frustrated. Why is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, why is the National Assembly today the stooge? This is the worst we've ever had it in the history of Nigeria, where National Assembly, since the inception of democratic dispensation, this is the first time we have National Assembly that is completely, when I say completely, 100% at the beckon, at the whims and caprices of the president of the day. Why do you think it's so? Because the National Assembly, everyone there is corrupt. The president is corrupt, so they are just sharing the Nigerian loot, the Nigerian resources. That is why everywhere whatever he says, they just follow. Trust me, if Bola Tinubu had been the opposite, the National Assembly, the House of Reps, Senate, honestly could have been we would have been hearing impeachment for the past 2 years. All would have been hearing is impeachment. Would have been impeachment. That is, if he had, by now, if he hadn't been impeached, a sort of. So, look, it is that this is. We are going to be treating a different topic on this because on the reason why this is the reason, one of the reasons, major reasons why I detest democracy. Because you just can't be one tree making a forest. Someone like Peter Obi would have been, yes, there's no doubt about that. His discipline would have contributed. There's no doubt would have helped in a curbing corruption. But honestly, it could have, when it comes to curbing, when I said curbing, it could have been just like a drop of water in an ocean, compared to the magnanimity, compared to the magnanimity of, not magnanimity, but compared to the hugeness of the magnitude, rather. Sorry. Yes. Magnitude. Sorry. Yes. Compared to the magnitude of the corruption. Because it could have been just a dent in it or whatever. He would have tried it best, but the truth is, the system would have swallowed him up. You and I talked about this issue of Peter Obi operating within the system, that he can never succeed if he operates with it. And that's the reality. You cannot, no clean man, not even a cent, can succeed in operating within the system. You have to operate outside the system for you to succeed. How do you operate outside the system? You operate outside the system when you use the tools that is from outside the system, not within the system. And what is the tools, or who are the tools? The tools are the same human beings, the corrupt, endemically corrupt human beings in the system. They are the tools. So look, honestly, you and I disagree. Obi is an impeccable man. There's no doubt about that. But as the president, he couldn't have done, honestly, he couldn't have done much to fight corruption. He could have done, the only thing I expected from him was, if he were to be the president, was at least taking care of the institution, building the institution infrastructure. He would have done that. He would have succeeded in doing that. But curbing corruption, that would have been. It's just not it. We cannot. No democratic setting, no democratically elected president can do this. Never. No matter how clean you are, no matter how decent you are, how perfect you are. No democratic Nigeria, not even Nigeria alone, Africa, no democratically elected government can actually, except countries that are not known, not seriously known for corruption. But a country like Nigeria, democratically we cannot. Nobody can fight corruption in Nigeria. The only way we can fight corruption in Nigeria is through military. That's just the reality. Barrister, I think
it's we are not talking across purpose. Actually, we are saying virtually the same thing. What I said was that his fighting corruption will be relative. He will be constrained. How far he will go will depend on the constraints of the other systems of governance that we have. But in comparison to the people we have had, that is from Jonathan to Buhari to Tinubu, I will rate him far better at it. Because some of these people are not even fighting corruption at all. They are not fighting the corruption at all.
And besides, well, actually,
in comparison to them,
yes,
relative to them, I will always rate him better.
Yeah, the other
and
part.
I want to also point out one thing. As strong as Obasanjo was, remember, back in 1999, when Obasanjo's ministers were being screened, and Erufai came up to tell Obasanjo that, look, I went to the Senate for screening, and they asked for bribe. They asked for bribes. Obasanjo, what did Obasanjo do? Hello?
I can hear you.
Yes. What Obasanjo did was to refer him to Atiku Abubakar. You know what that means? Somehow Obasanjo avoided the problem, but he didn't sort out the issue. He shifted it to Atiku Abubakar, who was vice president, knowing very well that Atiku Abubakar would be able to source for funds within the system to sort out the members of the National Assembly. So he also acquires in the system that we had. I don't think Peter Obi will agree to do something like that. He, in that instance, would not have given in to members of the National Assembly. It's like Obasanjo just put his head like an ostrich. He put his head in the sand and pretended that the problem had gone away.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we're not talking about. Yeah, I understand that of Obasanjo. Now, let's because we overstretched this topic. Let me make a point here. Peter Obi now. One of the other point I wanted to make on this Peter Obi's clip, his passion, his anger, his rage, his the frustration he exhibited on that clip. Where was that? I don't get it, because as far as I'm concerned, whatever, there is no doubt about that. Peter Obi has been going around criticizing the government. He's doing what he's supposed to do, but the reality is, he missed the mark. He missed the opportunity to do the right thing. What we needed, everything he has been saying are things that everyone, so many countless number of people have been saying it for years. So when I say VIP dignitaries, public figures have been criticizing the government. Some of them who are genuine and sincere in doing that, they've been doing it for years. So everything he's been saying are not new to us. So we expected something. We expected him to help us do something new, something unprecedented. We expected him to take that action that nobody had the gut to take. We expected him to take the step that nobody ever took, and that was after the 2023 election, when Bola Ahmed Tinubu robbed us, when he raped the so-called democracy. When he actually imposed himself on us, I expected, and not just like many people expected him, honestly, Peter Obi to actually take the bull by the horn. Now he's exhibiting all this passion and anger and frustration, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, it's too late for him. But I expected such passion, I expected such frustration, such anger to have manifested physically, for him to have practicalized it immediately after the election, when INEC decided to rape this so-called democracy. And that is just it. But here we are today. He's just crying and ranting all over the place, rightfully so. But as far as for someone like him, honestly, he missed the mark. I expected Peter Obi to lead that revolution that we've been praying for, we've been asking for. And he was in the right position to do that. Unfortunately, he didn't. He just missed that opportunity. He will never, look, if he becomes the president, honestly, I will be the happiest person. Now, what I'm saying right now is not to antagonize him, I'm just being pragmatic. I'm just being frantic. That's just the reality. That Peter Obi missed that opportunity. He will never. That was he was just an inch to being the president, and that was the first, and that was the last time. Peter Obi will never get close to that presidency anymore. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm a supporter. If he gets there, if I see the light at the end of the tunnel for Peter Obi, I will support him. I'm only saying this because for being practical, he's still the best in the field right now, compared to everyone contesting or aspiring. He's the best. He's the most, to me, he's the most respected, should be the most respected politician. He's the most impeccable. No one even gets to go close to him in impeccability. There's no doubt about that. But I am only being frantic here. Peter Obi will never smell. He meets that opportunity of being Nigeria's president in 2023. He will never get there because the coast is clear. Bola Tinubu has cleared the entire coast for himself. He did it when he had no power. How much more now? I'm telling you, Peter Obi, it will never ever get that close anymore. These corrupt politicians will never let him. Unfortunately for us, I hate to say this. Honestly, I hate to say this. I don't like it when I say this, but that's just the reality. That's who I am.